The House will come to order. Prayer by the chaplain.
Let us pray. Almighty and loving God, we come to you, the source of all wisdom, to ask you to pour forth your Spirit upon these elected representatives, so that in the coming weeks and months they may act with prudence and sound judgment as they diligently seek to do what is wise and right for the common good of the people they are privileged to represent. And we make this prayer in your powerful and holy name. Amen.
The chaplain for today is Deacon Nathan E. Allen from the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. The Pledge of Allegiance. Please remain standing and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. The clerk will take the roll. Members, when the chief clerk calls the roll today to establish a quorum, please state your name, your location, that you are present. Members using the remote voting application should also press the green yay button when your name is called.
Acom.
Acom, Minnetonka, present.
Acom, Minnetonka, present. Agbaje.
Agbaje, St. Paul, present.
Agbaje, St. Paul, present. Ackland. Ackland.
Ackland, St. Paul, present.
Ackland, St. Paul, present. Albright.
Albright, Prior Lake, present.
Albright, Prior Lake, present. Anderson.
Anderson, Barsness Township, present.
Anderson, Barsness Township, present. Backer.
Backer, Browns Valley, present.
Backer, Browns Valley, present. Bonner.
Bonner, St. Paul, present.
Bonner, St. Paul, present. Barr.
Barr, East Bethel, present.
Barr, East Bethel, present. Baker, excused. Becker-Finn.
Becker-Finn, St. Paul, present.
Becker-Finn, St. Paul, present. Bennett.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present.
Bennett, Albert Lee, present. Berg.
Berg, St. Paul, present.
Berg, St. Paul, present. Bernardi.
Bernardi, St. Paul, Bernardi, New Brighton, present.
Bernardi, New Brighton, present. Bierman.
Bierman, St. Paul, present.
Bierman, St. Paul, present. Bliss.
Bliss, St. Paul, present.
Bliss, St. Paul, present. Bow.
Bow, Chanhassen, present.
Bow, Chanhassen, present. Bolden.
Bolden, St. Paul, present.
Bolden, St. Paul, present. Burkle.
Burkle, St. Paul, present.
Burkle, St. Paul, present. Carlson.
Carlson, Bloomington, present.
Carlson, Bloomington, present. Christensen.
Christensen, Stillwater, present.
Christensen, Stillwater, present. Daniels.
Daniels, St. Paul, present.
Daniels, St. Paul, present. Daudt. Daudt, St. Paul, present. Davids. David, St. Paul, present. Davney.
Daphne, St. Paul, present.
Davney, St. Paul, present. Damuth.
Damuth, St. Paul, present.
Damuth, St. Paul, present. Detmer. Detmer, St. Paul, present. Dreskowski.
Dreskowski, Winona, present.
Dreskowski, Winona, present. Eklund.
Eklund, International Falls, present.
Eklund, International Falls, present. Edelson.
Edelson, Edina.
Edelson, Edina, present. Elkins.
Elkins, St. Paul, present.
Elkins, St. Paul, present. Erickson.
Erickson, St. Paul, present.
Erickson, St. Paul, present. Feist.
Feist, St. Paul, present.
Feist, St. Paul, present. Fisher.
Fisher, St. Paul, present.
Fisher, St. Paul, present. Frankie.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present.
Frankie, St. Paul Park, present. Franzen.
Franson, St. Paul, present.
Franzen, St. Paul, present. Frazier.
Frazier, New Hope, present.
Frazier, New Hope, present. Frederick.
Frederick Mankato, present.
Frederick Mankato, present. Freiberg.
Freiberg, Golden Valley, present.
Freiberg, Golden Valley, present. Garofalo.
Garofalo, Farmington, present.
Garofalo, Farmington, present. Gomez.
Gomez, Minneapolis, present.
Gomez, Minneapolis, present. Green.
Green, Foston, present.
Green, Foston, present. Greenman.
Greenman, St. Paul, present.
Greenman, St. Paul, present. Grossel.
Grossel, Clearbrook, present.
Grossel, Clearbrook, present. Grunhagen. Excused. Haley. Haley, St. Paul, present. Hamilton.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present.
Hamilton, St. Paul, present. Hanson R.
Hanson R. Harmony, present.
Hanson R. Harmony, present. Hanson J.
Hanson J. St. Paul, present.
Hanson J. St. Paul, present. Hassan. Hassan. Hausman.
Hausman, St. Paul, present.
Hausman, St. Paul, present. Heinrich.
Heinrich, St. Paul, present.
Heinrich, St. Paul, present. Heinzman.
Heinzman, St. Paul, present.
Heinzman, St. Paul, present. Her, St. Paul, present. Hertas.
Toss, Greenfield, present.
Hertas, Greenfield, present. Hollins.
Hollins, St. Paul, present.
Hollins, St. Paul, present. Hornstein.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present.
Hornstein, Minneapolis, present. Howard.
Howard, St. Paul, present.
Howard, St. Paul, present. Hewitt.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present.
Hewitt, St. Paul, present. Igo.
Igo, St. Paul, present.
Igo, St. Paul, present. Johnson. Johnson, St. Paul, present. Jordan.
Jordan, St. Paul, present.
Jordan, St. Paul, present. Jurgens.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present.
Jurgens, St. Paul, present. Keeler.
Keeler, St. Paul, present.
Keeler, St. Paul, present. Keel.
Keel, St. Paul, present.
Keel, St. Paul, present. Cleavorn.
Cleaborn, St. Paul, present.
Cleavorn, St. Paul, present. Cagle.
Cagle, St. Paul, present.
Cagle, St. Paul, present. Katiza Wattoon.
Katiza Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present.
Katiza Wattoon, Eden Prairie, present. Kosnick.
Kosnick, St. Paul, present.
Kosnick, St. Paul, present. Creshaw.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present.
Creshaw, Little Falls, present. Lee.
Lee, Minneapolis, present.
Lee, Minneapolis, present. Liebling.
Liebling, Rochester, present.
Liebling, Rochester, present. Lilly.
Lily, North St. Paul, present.
Lilly, North St. Paul, present. Lippert.
Lippert, Northfield, present.
Lippert, Northfield, present. Lislegard.
Lislegard, Aurora, present.
Lislegard, Aurora, present. Long.
Long, St. Paul, present.
Long, St. Paul, present. Lucero.
Lucero, Wright County, present.
Lucero, Wright County, present. Lewick.
Lewick, St. Paul, present.
Lewick, St. Paul, present. Mariani.
Mariani, St. Paul, present.
Mariani, St. Paul, present. Marquardt.
Marquardt, St. Paul, present.
Marquardt, St. Paul, present. Mason.
Mason, St. Paul, present.
Mason, St. Paul, present. McDonald. Excused. Mecklin.
Macklin, Becker Township, present.
Macklin, Becker Township, present. Miller. Miller, St. Paul, present. Moeller.
Moeller, Shoreview, present.
Moeller, Shoreview, present. Moran. Moran, St. Paul, present. Morrison.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present.
Morrison, Deep Haven, present. Mortensen.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present.
Mortensen, St. Paul, present. Mueller. Mueller, St. Paul, present. Munson.
Munson, St. Paul, present.
Munson, St. Paul, present. Murphy.
Murphy, St. Paul, present.
Murphy, St. Paul, present. Nash.
Nash, St. Paul, present.
Nash, St. Paul, present. Nelson M.
Nelson M., Brooklyn Park, present.
Nelson M. Brooklyn Park, present. Nelson N.
Nelson N., Clover Township, present.
Nelson N. Clover Township, present. New Brindley. New Brindley, St. Paul, present. Noor.
Noor, St. Paul, present.
Noor, St. Paul, present. Novotny. Novotny, St. Paul, present. O'Driscoll.
O'Driscoll Sartell, present.
O'Driscoll Sartell, present. Olson B.
Olson B. St. Paul, present.
Olson B. St. Paul, present. Olson L. Olson L, present. O'Neill.
O'Neill, St. Paul, present.
O'Neill, St. Paul, present. Pulowski.
Pulowski, Winona, present.
Pulowski, Winona, present. Petersburg.
Petersburg, St. Paul, present.
Petersburg, St. Paul, present. Farr.
Farr, St. Paul, present.
Farr, St. Paul, present. Pearson.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present.
Pearson, Rochester Township, present. Pinto.
Pinto, St. Paul, present.
Pinto, St. Paul, present. Poston.
Poston, Lakeshore, present.
Poston, Lakeshore, present. Pryor.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present.
Pryor, Minnetonka, present. Quam. Quam, St. Paul, present. Raleigh.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present.
Raleigh, St. Paul, present. Rasmussen. Rasmussen, St. Paul, present. Ryer.
Pryor, St. Paul, present.
Ryer, St. Paul, present. Richardson.
Richardson, Lauderdale, present.
Richardson, Lauderdale, present. Robbins. Robbins, St. Paul, present. Sandell.
Sandell, St. Paul, present.
Sandell, St. Paul, present. Sandsted.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present.
Sandsted, Hibbing, present. Schumacher.
Schumacher, Laverne, present.
Schumacher, Laverne, present. Schultz.
Schultz, Duluth, present.
Schultz, Duluth, present. Scott.
Scott, Andover, present.
Scott, Andover, present. Stevenson.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present.
Stevenson, St. Paul, present. Sundin.
Sundin, St. Paul, present.
Sundin, St. Paul, present. Swazinski.
Swazinski, Northland Township, present.
Swazinski, Northland Township, present. Tice, excused. Thompson.
Thompson, St. Paul, present.
Thompson, St. Paul, present. Torkelson.
Torkelson, Hanska, present.
Torkelson, Haska, present. Erdahl.
Erdahl, Acton Township, present.
Erdahl, Acton Township, present. Vang.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present.
Vang, Brooklyn Center, present. Waslowick.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present.
Waslowick, St. Paul, present. West.
West, Blaine, present.
West, Blaine, present. Winkler. Winkler, St. Paul, present. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, St. Paul, present. Zhang Jie.
Oh, dang it, it's not.
Zhang Jie, St. Paul, present.
Zhang Jie, St. Paul, present. Zhang Ti.
Zhang T, St. Paul, present.
Zhang Ti, St. Paul, present. Joachim.
Joachim, St. Paul, present.
Joachim, St. Paul, present. Speaker Hartman.
Speaker Hortman, Brooklyn Park, present.
Speaker Hartman, Brooklyn Park, present. Hassan. Hassan.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present.
Hassan, Minneapolis, present.
The clerk will close the roll. A quorum is present. The clerk will read the journal of the preceding day.
Journal of the House, 92nd session, 2021, 7th day, St. Paul, Minnesota, Monday, January 25th, 2021.
If there is no objection, further reading of the journal will be dispensed with, and the journal will be approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Hearing no objection, the journal is approved as corrected by the chief clerk. Comparison reports. A copy of this order of business is online. If there is no objection, the motions... The comparison reports. If there's no objection, the motions will prevail. If there's no objection, the motions will prevail. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail and the substitutions will be made. Reports of standing committees and divisions. A copy of this order of business is online. If there's no objection, the reports will be adopted. Hearing no objection, the reports are adopted. Second reading of House files.
Second reading, House File Number 102.
Second reading.
Second reading, House File Number 219.
Second reading. Second reading of Senate files.
Second reading, Senate File Number 192.
Second reading. Introduction of bills. The following House files have been offered for introduction today. The Chief Clerk will report the House files and give them their first reading.
Introduction and first reading of House Files 338 through 526.
First reading House Files 338 through 526. Report from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Winkler from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration, pursuant to Rules 1.21 and 3.33, designates the following bill to be placed on the calendar for the day for Thursday, January 28, 2021, and establishes a pre-filing requirement for amendments offered to the following bill, Senate File Number 26. Calendar
for the day. The first bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File Number 26. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File Number 26, number 1 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to family leave.
I call on the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Back on April 14th of last year, at the very beginning of the pandemic, we waived the requirement that parties appear in person to apply for a marriage license. This allowed counties to change their processes in the ways that they saw fit to best safely serve their residents. Members, I know we often refer to bills as being simple. If that were ever true, I think this bill is it. It fits on just one page, so no excuses for not reading the whole thing. It changes the date from January 15th to May 31st of this year. That's it. The bill is very narrow, purely a matter of civil law jurisdiction, passed out of the Judiciary and Civil Law Committee unanimously. As I noted, this provision already expired 13 days ago on January 15th. The effective date is therefore retroactive to the beginning of this year. That being said, the couples who have been issued marriage licenses and the counties who have issued them since the 15th are understandably a bit nervous. The longer we wait, the more potential problems could arise. And a lot of things are uncertain right now, and the validity of marriage licenses doesn't need to be one of those things. We're taking up the Senate file today because this already passed the Senate unanimously last week. The bill is supported by the Association of Minnesota Counties and Minnesotans who want to safely procure their marriage licenses. So this should be an easy one, and I ask for your support.
There are amendments at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Johnson moves to amend Senate File Number 26 as follows. The amendment is coded A1.
To the author of the amendment, Representative Johnson.
Madam Speaker, members, this amendment is real simple, and it's written very well to fall in line with this bill. It allows not only marriage license, which you don't have to prove who you are, you just have a birth certificate, but it allows those seeking to exercise their Second Amendment right to carry a firearm. It adds that to that list. It's just a temporary thing, and it's permissive. If a county does not want to do that, they don't have to. But should they choose to do it that way, they can. Now, there's 4 counties that are having a lot of problems with permit to carries. Olmsted, St. Louis, Ramsey County, which has a 10-week delay on getting an appointment to deliver your paperwork. And 10 weeks is, that's how long the last shutdown was. But it's 10 weeks is over 2 months. Now we get to Hennepin County, and if my permit expires in 3 months, I'm gonna have to pay extra. By the time I can get my paperwork given to them, my 30-day grace period has expired, and I have to apply for a completely new permit to carry and have to pay the extra fees. Now, in Hennepin County, I did some checking. There's roughly a little over 7,000 people that apply for marriage license in Hennepin County. And because it was that great of a number, we allowed this to have them do it remotely and not have to be in person. Now, there's over 6,062 to 6,500 permit to carries a year in Hennepin County. That's why there's a 4-month delay waiting period just to drop your paperwork off if you can get an appointment. Now, Hennepin County does not have to do this if they choose not to, but if they do choose this, they can get caught up, because once this is over, they're going to be hammered so bad that they're not going to meet the statutory deadlines of 3-month period or 30-day period to get the permits out. This is giving them an opportunity to start catching up so they don't go behind, so people that, so that these background checks and stuff can get done so they can get their caught up. Now, if you're wondering about proving who they are, a marriage license, you really don't have to. But when you drop off your paperwork for a permit to carry, which I just did last month, or 2 months ago, I had to fill out the forms, make sure they're all filled out correctly, do a photocopy of my driver's license, a current driver's license. I got delayed because I was waiting for my new driver's license. So because my other one was voided out, I had to wait until I had my new driver's license arrived. Or I should say my government-issued ID with my driving privileges printed on it. And I also had to provide a copy of my previous permit to carry. And I had to provide documentation that I've completed the course through a BCA-approved instructor who also has to prove who I am when I take the class. So there's multiple steps in place already that can guarantee that the person filling out the paperwork is the person that that permit is going to be given to, and that the person has had all the requirements made. It's a practical sense for these people to catch up. And Madam Speaker, with that, I would request a roll call.
Seeing 15 hands. Not seeing 15
Point of order,
hands.
Madam Speaker.
Member from Rice, Representative Lippert, for what purpose do you rise?
Rule 3.21 states that a motion or amendment must be germane. This amendment references a section of law not in the original bill. It expands the scope of the bill, so it's not germane.
I find the point of order well taken.
Madam Speaker, I appeal the ruling of the Speaker and request a roll call vote.
An appeal has been called for the ruling of the Speaker, and seeing
There will be 59 hands.
Seeing not 15 hands in the chamber, please. We'll do, the roll call has been requested. Members, a roll call has been requested. Not seeing 15 hands in the chamber, I will now ask members to send an email from their official House email account to hands@house.mn with the word hands in the subject line. We will wait 60 seconds to determine if we have 15 hands for a roll call. We have 15 hands, so there will be a roll call. And I'm going to remind the body what the vote will be. So the question before the body is, shall the decision of the Speaker stand as judgment of the House? A yes or a green vote supports the ruling of the Speaker. A no or red vote goes against the ruling of the Speaker. The clerk will take the roll. Or, I apologize. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of course, debate of that question is in order, and I would like to speak to my motion. Members, this is not, should not be seen as anything other than we're going to allow a county to take an electronic signature for this purpose, for this application, and we're going to allow a county to take an electronic signature for an application for this purpose. And actually, this will help counties out in both cases. So we shouldn't try to politicize this. We shouldn't try to wonder what one's about or the other is about. This literally is about just doing the right thing so that people can get access to the services that they need from counties. Counties are overburdened. Counties are struggling to provide the services in a safe way, as we all are, because of this pandemic. And this is an opportunity for them to provide that service in a very safe way and really make sure that they can provide the services that they need to for their residents. This is an important thing. I toured, if you want to get into the issue of what the permits are for and why they're important, I would argue that the permits for a permit to carry are more important. And if the question before the body, and I know the speaker is going to want me to make sure that my comments are to that question. The question before the body is, are we overruling the speaker, which means, is this relevant? It is relevant. It's just as relevant as requesting the option for an electronic signature for a marriage license is the same as an electronic signature for a permit to carry a handgun. We know that it's relevant because this body has actually voted on this motion in the past. It has become before this body last summer, and it came on a motion on House File 4605, and that happened on Tuesday, May 12th, and this body did vote on this motion. It wasn't ruled out of order. It wasn't non-germane. I think anybody with any common sense can see that this is absolutely germane. And I think everybody knows that what we do in this chamber, if you're the majority party and you don't want to vote on something, we rule it out of order and say we didn't vote on it. You shouldn't be afraid to vote on this. I remember touring Minneapolis after the riots, after the killing of George Floyd, and unfortunate situation. I think we can all agree, a very tragic situation. And I remember the heartfelt stories of business owners who night after night talked about staying up all night long, and they had a cousin with a permit to carry or a relative or a friend, and they had them in front of their businesses, protecting their businesses from destruction night after night after night. This is not some ideological thing. This is as basic a safety protection as the mask that I'm wearing right now.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Representative Winkler, point of order.
Madam Speaker, members must confine their remarks to the question before the body. The question before the body is whether the Speaker was in error in ruling that the Johnson Amendment was not germane to the underlying bill. It is not a question of relevance, importance, or motives. It is a question of whether the Speaker got the ruling wrong, and that's what the members' remarks should be confined to.
I'll remind members that the question before the body is if the ruling of the speaker should stand. Representative Daudt.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think it's obvious, I think from my comments and the others that I'm sure you may hear from our members, that the Speaker got it wrong. And that's not a poor reflection on you, Madam Speaker. I have stood in that place many times, and I got it wrong once in a while too. It happens. It certainly does. And I would cite back to the time that we actually did vote on this, and it wasn't ruled out of order, because it most certainly is germane. And it's not only germane, but it is also important. And the reason the underlying bill is before us today is because it's important. And for us to say that one is important and one is not, or it's okay to vote on this one because it came here through the Rules Committee and being placed on the calendar, it's okay for this chamber to actually just vote on it, because the other one is just as important. And it's coming here according to the rules of our body through an amendment by a member of this body, and it absolutely is germane. It should not have been ruled out of order. They're both incredibly important. So let's not make the mistake of thinking we'll just use some procedure to rule something out of order and it'll, we won't have to vote on it. Members want the ability to go out our citizens want to be able to get a marriage license safely. They also want to be able to get a permit to carry safely. And I assure you that our counties want to be able to issue the permit to get married, the marriage license, and they want to be able to issue the permit to carry a firearm as well. And both of these things will save the counties money and give them flexibility. So let's make sure that we give them the flexibility that they need. But we know what happens. Ideologically, if there's a firearm involved with something, even if it's for protecting our business, in the heart of Minneapolis, where riots went on night after night after night, there are people here who just don't want to vote on things to do with firearms, even when they help us and protect us, just like the masks that we're wearing right now. They're for your protection. And unfortunately, we're denying Minnesotans the protection that they need because they can't get access to a permit to carry because of a pandemic. And for the same reason that we're here with a marriage license bill in front of us to provide counties with flexibility, it's the same reason that we need the flexibility and the permits to carry a handgun. It's important, and it will provide counties the flexibility they need to provide the legal services and the obligation they have to the citizens that they represent and they serve. And that's the same obligation we have. So let's not miss an opportunity to help our counties out, and let's not miss an opportunity to help our citizens out. And this isn't something that just Republican districts need. I've never seen it personally needed more, and needed more in a heartfelt way than I saw it when I toured those riot-damaged areas in Minneapolis and heard the stories of people in those districts protecting their businesses because they had a permit to carry, and how that one thing kept them safe night after night after night. And right now, because of this pandemic, they may not have access to that. And I hope there's not another scenario where we have rioting. But just like I wear a mask because I don't want to hope that I don't get COVID, I wear this mask to protect me, and I wear this mask to protect you. I would rather not wear it, but it's my protection. I would rather we don't have rioting. I would rather we don't have somebody that breaks into your home.
Point of order,
but if
Madam
they
Speaker,
do, I want to be protected.
Representative Winkler, state your point of order.
Madam Speaker, Representative Daudt is far beyond the field of appealing the motion or the ruling of the Speaker. The subject is germaneness. The subject is not importance, relevance, flexibility, safety, or that the process doesn't matter. The question is whether the amendment is germane to the bill, and he is supposed to be offering advice to the body, not talking about tours from the summertime.
Madam Speaker, the point was well taken, and I will change my remarks.
Representative Daudt.
Thank you.
Representative Daudt, I'll remind members that the question before the body and that members are offering advice on is, shall the decision of the Speaker stand as judgment at the House?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I'll remind you to confine your remarks to that. Representative Daudt.
I most certainly will. And there's a point when you've been here long enough, you know when your message has been received and you've been successful. And I may have just given my most successful speech of my career here because the majority leader in this body just repeated every one of my talking points. So there's nothing more for me to say. I'll sit down. Thank you.
To the member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, advice to the body, Representative Daudt, whatever it takes. Members, the question before us is a procedural question. The title of the bill is a bill for an act related to family law. We have a germaneness rule under 3.21 in which the question is whether the amendment substantially or significantly expands the scope of the bill. One test for that is whether sections of statute are included in the underlying bill that the amendment raises. On every single test for germaneness that we have under 3.21, under the rules of the House that we have all adopted, in fact, this is not remotely germane to the underlying bill. And in fact, the reason why we have these rules is to follow an orderly process. There is a bill introduced by Representative Listlegard. It has 2 authors. There's plenty more room. We could have 33 more authors on that bill if people wanted to move that bill through the process on this very subject. An amendment today is simply hijacking one bill for an amendment that has nothing to do with it, and I ask you to vote green to uphold the correct ruling of the Speaker on this procedural question.
Seeing no more advice to the body, I will reread the what is before the body, the question before the body. It's, shall the decision of the Speaker stand as judgment of the House? A yes or green vote supports the ruling of the Speaker, and a no or red vote goes against the ruling of the Speaker. So the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. Members, there are 4 people who voted remotely and who need to vote remotely again. So please vote, members, in the way in which you did for prior votes. The clerk will now call the verbal votes.
It doesn't.
Agbajay.
I had to vote the same way, and I can't go.
Agbajay votes aye. Barr.
Barr, no.
Barr, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Davney.
Daphne votes aye.
Davney, aye. Detmer. Detmer, no. Grossel.
Grossel, no.
Grossel, no. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, aye.
Hanson, R, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Hollins.
Hollins, aye.
Hollins, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. Mueller. Mueller, no. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Olson, L. Olson, L, aye. Richardson.
Richardson votes aye.
Richardson, aye. Sandell. Sandell. Scott.
Scott votes no.
Scott, no. Wozlowick.
Wozlowick votes aye.
Wozlowick, aye. West.
West, no.
West, no. Wolgamott.
I'll try again.
Wolgamott, aye. Speaker Hortman.
Speaker Hortman votes aye.
Speaker Hortman, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye.
Sandsted votes aye.
Sandsted, aye. What is the deal? Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. There's 4 excused and 2 haven't voted.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 70 ayes and 60 nays, it is the judgment of the House that the decision of the Speaker shall stand. There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Creshaw moves to amend Senate File number 26. The amendment is coded A3.
To the author of the amendment, Representative Creshaw.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Every day I get calls from would-be bride and grooms who are looking to plan their wedding. And the bill that we have in front of us seeks to remove that uncertainty about when they can get their marriage license and how. However, we're still left with the impossible situation of having a meaningful wedding, even though bars and restaurants are able to be open at 50%. Would Representative John Poston yield for a question?
Yes, I will.
He will yield. Representative Creshaw.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Poston, you know a little bit about this and the effects and the double standards. If a would-be bride or groom were to call into your district or call you specifically and ask about having a wedding, say in June after they've just gotten their online license, or even in May, what would be the response and what would be the effects of that?
Representative Poston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Right now, we would have to tell them that they could have 10 people inside or 15 people outside if there's food and alcohol service, which there is typically at a wedding reception. My company operates restaurants and a catering business in the Brainerd Lakes area. And I just kind of like to share some thoughts about the biggest venue that we do business with and the effects that this has had on our company and the effects it's had on many other companies. Although restaurants are able to open at 50%, like Representative Creshaw said, and event centers are only allowed to have 10 or 15. It's kind of a double standard, and it really can't be based on science, because these event centers have much more room than the typical restaurant, can do a much better job of social distancing and making things safe. Since this mandate has gone into place, or I'll really go back all the way to last April, we have had to lay off our entire staff twice. We've had many, many weddings canceled. We've had many weddings downsize. We've had many weddings postponed. Some postponed 2 or 3 times. We've had 56 weddings since last April that have been affected by these shutdowns or these mandates. I'd like everyone to understand that these mandates affect more than just the venue. It is extremely frustrating for families to be unable to celebrate the marriage of a loved one, which quite honestly is one of the most important things that happens in a person's life is their marriage. You wouldn't want to be me and have to talk to the bride or the mother of the bride when we tell them that they can't have their reception or they can only have 10 people. It's a tough thing to do. It's a very personal, a personal day. It's a personal event. In most cases, it takes almost a year to plan. But there's some huge trickle-down effect, I'm going to call it. So the venue is the main component, but then there's the catering company like I operate, and then there's the florist who are deeply affected. The party rental companies where we rent chairs and tables and tablecloths and things are deeply affected. Liquor suppliers and local breweries, who we almost always try to use local breweries, are deeply affected. DJs, bands, hair salons are all affected. And you can think about how they're affected because you understand the things that happen at a wedding. Photographers, wedding planners, bakeries, bridal shops, shuttle services, tux rentals, hotels, motels, and up in my neck of the woods, resorts. We have some of the biggest, nicest resorts in the state of Minnesota in the Brainerd Lakes area, and they have wedding chapels, they have event spaces, they have hotel and resort accommodations, and none of these weddings are happening. No one wants to have a wedding for 10 or 15 people. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. The venue that is our biggest venue to work with has got a space that's as big as 26,000 square feet. We don't often use that for weddings, but there are some other spaces that are 10,000 and 5,000 square feet that we do use. Much larger than any typical restaurant, much easier to make people safe, much easier to social distance. We can operate restaurants safe today. We are running our restaurants safe today, and we can run these venues safely. We can do weddings safely. We can do receptions safely. And right now is a critical time for all of these people that I just spoke about, because if you're going to have a wedding this year, right now is when you need to plan it. Right now is when you need to finalize those plans. And we're not able to do that because we don't know what's going to happen in a month or 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. We don't know. So they're postponing weddings. They're getting married in their backyards. They're doing things that are not traditional and hurting these businesses very, very deeply. Again, I said this has affected 56 weddings for us at this one venue. It's been more than $400,000 worth of revenue lost since last April. Again, we've had to let our people go more than once. And for me and my business partner, that is the hardest thing for us to do. Let people go and see them suffer and go through that pain with them. They're not our employees, they're our family. And we need to get past this. We can do this safely. We can protect our folks, so we can protect the people coming to a wedding. We can do this right, and we can do this safe. So I thank you for your time, Madam Speaker, members, and I please hope that you will consider voting green on this. Thank you.
Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Representative Poston. And Members, I hear, and I encourage you, don't know what the outcome of this will be. I want to have this discussion. I encourage you in all sincerity, call your wedding venues in your districts. If you have a bride or groom that over the holidays proposed and is starting to look at dates, they're going to find, because of this discrepancy and incongruency, they will not be able to plan a wedding date. I'm hearing of wedding dates and weddings in 2022 being canceled because we are incongruent with the standard of a 50% capacity open for bars and restaurants outside. I have venues here in my district, Little Falls Ballroom and the Piers Ballroom. They have the capacity for 800 people, and they can't have more than 15 people. Members, this is important. This just isn't something that is being swept under the rug. These are businesses and people that are being forgotten. These are brides and grooms on their most important day of their lives who are finding it nearly impossible to celebrate one of the most hallowed and sacred institutions we have of marriage, that ability to say your vows in front of a group of people and to stand up and look at your future spouse and to say, I take you till death do us part in front of all of these people. The act of marriage is committing to the person you love in front of a public place so that you are held accountable by all the people that love you. And we're taking that away. Members, I ask for you to look at this seriously. I ask for you to look at the incongruency of this that is happening with the Walls executive orders. And members, I ask for a roll call vote.
A roll call having been requested on the amendment, seeing 12 hands in the chamber. Seeing 12, are there 15 hands in the House chamber? Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Wolgamont.
Madam Speaker, point of order.
Representative Wolgamont, state your point of order.
Madam Speaker, under House Rule 3.21, an amendment offered to the House is out of order if it is not germane to the matter under consideration. Madam Speaker, the Crescia A3 amendment is not germane because it does not relate to the section of law in the primary bill, nor does it, in addition to that, it expands the scope of the bill. Therefore, Madam Speaker, this amendment is out of order.
Representative Daudt, do you have advice to the body? I find the point of order well taken.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would appeal the ruling of the Speaker and request a roll call.
Representative Daudt has requested a roll call to appeal the rule of the Speaker. Are there 15 hands? There are 15 hands. There will be a roll call. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I appreciate the point of order, but in this case, again, the Speaker and certainly not to reflect poorly on you, Madam Speaker, but unfortunately, we got this one wrong. And you know, if you review Rule 3.21. And all of the precedents in this body about why we rule things out of order, to say that this doesn't affect that section of law, this really is about an executive order. It's not about a section of law. And we're amending this section of law. It absolutely is germane for that reason. You talk about whether it brings new subject in. It doesn't. This is about weddings affected by COVID. The underlying amendment is about weddings affected by COVID. I couldn't have a more germane motion brought or amendment brought. It literally is, and as I read through section 3.21 in our rules, you know, every one of the tests on germaneness that our very capable majority leader spoke about in the last motion, every single test, this amendment passes. And for that reason, I think the members need to overrule the Speaker, and they need to be allowing the chamber and the members in the chamber to take this vote. Okay, so with that, Madam Speaker, you know, I think it's just important that members realize that this is an opportunity to take a vote on something that absolutely is germane. There isn't anything in here different than what's in the underlying motion. This is about weddings affected by COVID. There's not a new section of law. This doesn't apply to any other section of law. It's about an executive order. There's nothing in Rule 3.21 about executive orders. not being germane or that sort of thing. So this literally is about weddings affected by COVID and about weddings affected by COVID. So on that, Madam Speaker, I think there might be a member or two that would like to speak to this as well. But I'd ask members to, unfortunately, and again, not to reflect poorly on you, Madam Speaker, you're doing a great job up there. But unfortunately, on this one, from my perspective, I think maybe could have been done a little bit differently, and I would encourage members to overrule the ruling of the Speaker.
Advice to the body, Representative Haley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I'd like to remind Madam Speaker and the members that we have attempted to rectify this inconsistency, and the only way right now that the legislature has is reaching directly out to the governor who issued the executive order. We issued a letter on January 14th. That was 14 days ago, 2 weeks ago. And unfortunately, we have not heard a response. So again, today, in our role, representing our constituents, our job is to speak up on the floor of this House and get this matter addressed. In our letter, we stated the lack of uniformity in these executive orders, that restaurants can be open at 50% capacity, and yet a wedding can only have 10 people. So I find this very germane. We just voted to allow folks to get a marriage license, but they cannot get married. That is, I don't know what else could be more germane, and I also don't know what else could be more bipartisan in supporting our constituents. We all have wedding venues and restaurants and caterers in our district, and we certainly all represent folks that want to get married. I can see of nothing else more important here that we can accomplish today would be to address this bill and this amendment brought forward by Representative Poston and Representative Kresha. So thank you, Madam Speaker, for your indulgence to speak on this.
Further advice to the body on the ruling of the Speaker. I see the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just to clarify that the underlying bill is not about weddings impacted by COVID. It's about applying for a marriage license. In the same way that signing up for your driver's test is not the same as going on a road trip. My bill, the underlying bill, is very narrow and really just has to do with changing a date and pushing things out 4 months for the ability of counties to waive the requirement that folks apply in person. So really doesn't have anything to do with large wedding parties or anything like that. Was also not, didn't go through any other committees. This is purely a civil law jurisdiction issue. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Daudt, further advice?
Actually, a point of parliamentary inquiry, Madam Speaker.
State your parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a question for you about the rules. And as I read these, and I have viewed and watched a few different motions and members stand up on the floor and argue that this brings in some new subject. And I want a clarification from you and the, if you choose to consult the chief clerk on this. But the rules as I read them are very clear. Section 3.21 talks about the amendment must be germane, okay? And there's another, if you go to section B of that same rule, there is a section of this that applies to an amendment to an amendment. And that section talks about not bringing in a new subject, that your amendment to an amendment can only be germane to the underlying amendment. And I think that, my question is, I believe that this has been misused and sometimes we let the amendment to the amendment section B bleed over into the amendment. It is okay, and the history of this body is that it is okay that we do allow introduction of a new subject in by amendment. It just simply must be germane. It must deal with the same sorts of things. I served as Speaker of this chamber for 4 years. I made this ruling a lot. But I worry because I see something bleeding from one place to another that I don't read in the rule. So my question is, do you read, or does the chief clerk read in section 3.21 that an amendment must not bring in a new subject, because I do not read that in the rule. That is only as it applies to an amendment to an amendment, which this is not. So if you could just give a clarification for the body. I just don't want us to go into a place that the rules really don't direct here. So if you could answer that question, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Representative Daudt, I rule on points of order brought in front of me. Would you like to direct a question to Representative Winkler?
No, this was actually a point of parliamentary inquiry to you. I'm asking if you could clarify for us what that rule says, and if the chief clerk also believes that my reading is accurate, which I do not read in 3.21 that you cannot bring in a new subject, that it must be germane, which means it must deal with the same or similar things. You can't talk about, a marriage license and then talk about school lunch program, right? But we can talk about a marriage license and then a marriage ceremony. I mean, we do sometimes rule that you can't talk about this section of law and then that section of law, but ultimately, what I think we're perverting when we read these is there's a little bleed over of our understanding from Rule 3.21 Section B, which does not apply to this situation, which is an amendment. It only applies to an amendment, which says you cannot introduce a new subject. You can only amend the things that are in that particular amendment. So maybe more than anything, Madam Speaker, and maybe what I'm doing is you probably don't want to rule on this and you probably don't want to ask the chief clerk, and that's okay. And thank you for the latitude of letting me maybe make an argument which is completely germane to this subject, that I worry about us in this chamber misreading or misusing our rules in a way that I think is dangerous. We can actually use the 3.21, the amendment process, to change something in this body, but we need to call balls and strikes as we see them. And I think in this instant, we definitely got it wrong, and we have gotten it wrong a few times. If we don't believe this rule is correct and you believe that we should change it, then we got to bring a motion to change the rules. But in this situation, this is not bringing in a new subject. It actually is germane under both circumstances. But please remember that on an amendment, it is okay to bring in a new subject. That is only in Section B of this rule, that you cannot bring a new subject into an amendment to an amendment, which this is not.
Madam Speaker, advice to the body.
Representative Winkler, advice to the body on the question before the body, which is, shall the decision of the Speaker stand? Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, advice. Under 3.21, a motion or proposition, in this case a motion, on a subject different from that under consideration. So Representative Daudt, your reading on subsection B is accurate for that, but the concept of applying a new subject is applicable to main motions as well as secondary motions. We have multiple bases for deciding germaneness, members, and we might as well have a little bit more conversation about this. 3.21, the House rule, has a general statement. Mason's 402 has more guidance, and we have longstanding custom and usage in the House. So there are multiple factors to consider germaneness. Section of statute is one. Substantially changing or expanding the scope or purpose of a bill is another. The amendment should be relevant and appropriate in a logical sequence to the original bill in this case. A non-germane amendment would introduce a bill or new topic which did not receive a full and careful public input and testimony in the legislative process. So members, there are multiple things that we can consider for germaneness. As Representative Becker-Finn pointed out, all her bill does is put a new date for expiration on remote applications. It's important to know that the amendment offered by Representative Creshaw does far more. It in fact interferes with a governor's executive order under Chapter 12. It does not permit a wedding to happen. It requires that venues be allowed to operate at full occupant capacity. So we are deep into the weeds of deciding occupancy during a pandemic under the governor's emergency powers with this amendment. It is absolutely introducing a new subject. It has nothing to do with the underlying date change, and the Speaker's ruling is completely appropriate. And finally, members, the whole point of Senate File number 26 is to keep people safe in a pandemic by operating remotely. And the purpose of the amendment offered by Representative Creshaw will have the effect of allowing people to be much less safe in a pandemic by crowding together during weddings. So members, I would ask you vote green and uphold the ruling of the Speaker.
Further advice to the body on the question before us, Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just because I'm a stickler to the rules, we're not actually under advice to the body. We're debating the motion before the body. The advice is for the Speaker when the Speaker is asked to rule on a point of order. And if the Speaker chooses to ask for advice from the body, we can offer advice. But once we appeal to the ruling of Speaker and we're debating that, this isn't for you, Madam Speaker. This is for everybody in the chamber. Hopefully our Chief Clerk appreciates this, because it's just I think he's a stickler for the rules like I am. We're actually not giving advice right now. This is just debating the motion before the body. So, and I'm sure the Speaker will repeat the question before the body. I appreciate the Majority Leader bringing up Section 402 in our Mason's Manual, and appreciate that greatly. I did not refer to that, but I certainly can refer to the parts that he omitted during his argument. Section 402, Part 2, or Paragraph 2, to determine whether an amendment is germane, the question to be answered is whether the amendment is relevant, appropriate, and in a natural logical sequence to the subject matter in the original proposal. It doesn't need to be the same thing, right? It can be a cause, something that's caused by that, then can be affected by the amendment itself. And that's exactly the argument that's being made here by the folks who have brought this amendment forward. The fact that we have a wedding marriage certificate or license that can be issued, but once you issue that license, if the normal practice of some restrictions are in place right now that don't allow you to actually have the wedding or have the reception, that's absolutely germane to the underlying motion. And Section 402, Paragraph 2, clearly states that. I'd also point out that under Paragraph 3, to be germane, the amendment is required only to relate to the same subject. It may entirely change the effect or be in conflict with the spirit of the original motion or measure and still be germane to the subject. So we gotta, I understand that we sometimes don't want to vote on something and we use the rules and we stand up and make a point of order. Sometimes when you do that, it actually takes longer, because then the rules nerds in the chamber actually pull out the rule books and the Mason's Manual, and we start to debate all of these obscure rules that we read only once in a biennium. So maybe it would be better to just debate the underlying motion, vote on it quick, and dispense with it. But the reality is this is certainly by all of the rules, by all of the Mason's Manual, by all of our previous precedent, this is absolutely germane, and it should be allowed to be voted on today. And frankly, the reason is that the governor's emergency order is in conflict with other emergency orders. How can 150 people, or whatever the number is, be in a restaurant, but we can't have a wedding reception? Even with limited hours or limited numbers, you can have 13 people? I hope the governor's listening. Governor, please do me a favor. Just change it. Just change the executive order. I would love if the legislature would step up and actually play a role in the response to this pandemic. But time and time again, it refuses. Today, it's using the rules to say we don't want to have a part in this pandemic. We're going to leave it completely up to the governor, even when he's wrong. And it's okay for the governor to be wrong once in a while, right? And it's okay for us to correct him when he is wrong. 13 people for a wedding? And to say that it's not germane, I mean, come on, guys. Let's do our jobs today.
Seeing no further discussion, I will remind the body that the question before us.
Madam Speaker?
Who's seeking it? Representative Creshaw.
Yes, I do have the request to speak. I wanted to speak to that. I didn't know if I have that opportunity.
Representative Creshaw, I saw that. I wasn't sure if that was from the first discussion to the amendment. So yes, you have the floor, Representative Creshaw.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Walgamont, if we were in different times, I would walk over and we would have a discussion in the alcove. We're not in that time. And I really do want to try to find an answer to this. I'm wondering if you'll yield for 2 quick questions so I can get clarifications on why you rose to a point of order on this.
Representative Wolgamott. Representative Wolgamott will yield, yes. And I believe Representative Kresha just asked the question, Representative Wolgamott.
Okay, so he'll yield?
Representative Kresha, will you repeat the question?
Yeah, I just want to know if he'd yield first.
He will yield.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Wolgamott, like I said, in different times, I would walk over on the chamber, I'd have a conversation, and the first question I would ask you is, because I'm really trying to solve the problem here. I'm not trying to put an amendment that we're going to vote on and beat each other up on, or it's going to end up all over the place. I really want to solve this for bride and grooms. I get calls on this every day. I don't know if you do, but the first question I would ask you, Representative Wolgamott, when did you and how did you get to the point of seeing, trying to fix the incongruency of weddings to be not germane to our topic today? I mean, we're in the minority. I don't have a lot of tools. One of those is debating on the House floor. And I don't believe in my heart that you just tried to shoot this down procedurally. So you saw something I didn't. What is germane about not having weddings or not changing this?
Representative Wolgamott.
Representative Kresha, I read the bill, and I suggest that you do that. It's a pretty simple bill. It's one page. I'll refer your attention to 1.21. It's merely changing a date from January 15th to May 31st. And I did have conversations with the chief author of the bill, and that is the scope of the bill. And the subject of it is extending a date for marriage license applications. Your amendment has to do with wedding venue capacity, and it is expanding the scope of the bill. Therefore, it does not relate to the section of law in the primary bill. It expands the scope of the bill. It is not germane. It is out of order.
Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Wolgamott, I wonder if you'll yield for one more question. I really wasn't.
Representative Kresha, he will yield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Wolgamott, I really wasn't trying to make this a debate. I'm trying to figure out how I move past this. And what you said is you had a conversation with the author of the bill. I wish you'd have offered me that same gratitude or afforded me that same chance by having a conversation with me about the amendment on how I could have gotten your support for this. My question to you is, how could I have solicited your support, or how could I have written this in a way that you would have helped me support getting these venues to be equal with bars and restaurants? How could have I done that?
Representative Wolgamott.
Representative Kresha, I would have suggested two things to you. First, I would have suggested that you open up your permanent rules of the House, the yellow book, to page 16, and look at the top. Motions and propositions must be germane. A motion or proposition on a subject different from that under consideration must not be admitted under the guise of its being an amendment. That would have been the first thing I would have recommended to you. Then the second thing is talk to the reviser, send your language to the reviser, get it jacketed, put a bill in the hopper, get it introduced, and ask the committee chair for a hearing on your bill.
Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Wolgamott, thank you. I find it's sad that we can't just have a conversation anymore. I understand telling me procedurally and pragmatically how to fix it. I know how to do those steps. But what we've lost here, members, is the art of conversation, the art of building relationships. Representative Wolgamott, I remember back when you came in and the times we spent as a new member and talking about how to build relationships and bipartisanship. And what I'm finding here is we don't want to treat people as humans anymore. We don't want to get back to what's behind the bills that we're doing. We just want to do procedural motions, make this almost robotic to do this step, do this step. It saddens me that we can't have a conversation about our constituents, about the people that are affected by the bills we pass. That used to be the paramount duty that we had here. When we came and looked behind the speaker at the words written up there, we used to take that with pride. And I used to be able to go over to members across the aisle and say, how do we accomplish this? And not get, here's the textbook answer. What I used to get was, hey, you know what? Maybe we can find a way to fix this so that bride and grooms can get some certainty about their weddings. So that bride and grooms, when they look at the most important day, can find out when they can invite more than 15 guests because they might have to serve buffalo wings, or they might want to feed their guests who've traveled. Members, I get it. I know where this is going. I know the majority is going to beat this back procedurally, but it's a sad day when the minority and the majority party can no longer simply have a conversation. Representative Wogelman, I hope that the next time you're trying to solve something, you come to me. I don't put a textbook, or I don't put a book in front of your eyes. I say to you, you know what, let's work together to see if we can solve this, because I'll bet you somebody in your district and my district is doing the exact same thing. Madam Speaker, I think your ruling was incorrect on this. I would urge a no vote, and I would urge the minority to get an opportunity to try to solve these problems that I'll bet you every district is faced with.
Further discussion to the appeal of the ruling. The representative from Freeborn, Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would like to speak to the germaneness of this amendment. The very title of this section in law that we are dealing with has the words family and law in it. Well, we're dealing with an executive order that's being treated by law, and it's impacting families in an incredibly hard way. Number one, it's impacting families from celebrating, as they have for generations, one of the most sacred parts of life, and that's getting married. It's one that's cherished by families all over our nation and in Minnesota. And it's also affecting families like a couple that I know and have contacted me in tears in Albert Lee, because they own a wedding venue. It's a brand new wedding venue, a year old when this pandemic hit and the restrictions started coming. It's affecting this family tremendously. They pay $6,000 a month in expenses just when they're empty. That's without any events. $70,000 a year that they have to figure out how to pay because they cannot hold events due to the executive orders. They are literally sweating blood and tears.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Representative Winkler, state your point of order.
Mason Section 101, debate is limited to the question before the body. The question before the body is the comparison between the amendment and the underlying bill. There are multiple formats for expressing your concern about the governor's emergency orders, possibly even a motion that come up yet today regarding emergency orders. Possibly social media, a press conference, letters to the editor.
Madam Speaker, what order of business are we on right now at this second?
Representative Winkler has the floor.
Madam Speaker,
she only recognized you for a point of order. You've gone beyond the point of order right now. You're debating.
Representative Daudt, Representative Winkler has the floor.
Debate is limited to the question before the body.
Representative Winkler still has the floor. Please. Representative Winkler raises point of order. Further discussion on the appeal of the ruling. Representative O'Driscoll.
Madam Speaker, I wasn't finished yet, Madam Speaker.
Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I will just finish out by saying, first of all, I was speaking somewhat sarcastically when I said literally blood and tears, but they are sweating tears. And we can try to cancel this family out by ruling this as not germane, but it doesn't cancel their tears and their hardship. And it's incredibly unfair. And we should rule this germane so that we can actually deal with what's happening to multiple families throughout our state. Thank you.
The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. The global issue of germaneness is really this. For months now, the state of Minnesota has been under executive order after executive order. And I can go to Mass on Sunday morning at the church that I belong to here in Sartell, Minnesota. And we can have in excess of 250 people at that Mass. But yet alone a wedding being held there, they're restricted to how many people can go in the same worship space. Or a grieving family is restricted by the governor's executive order. as to how many people can attend that funeral. Like Representative Wolgamott, I have a number of venues in my district that offer wedding receptions and other large gathering events. The germaneness question is, when is this body going to step forward and say to the governor, we are a legitimate leg on the stool of government in this state? Members, I believe that the speaker is in error on this one. Please vote with a red vote when the opportunity comes today so that we can start regaining our powers as the Minnesota legislature. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Goodhue, Representative Haley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In reference to this discussion, I just wanted to point out a correction to Representative Wolgamott that he offered to Representative Crecia as to how this issue could be better handled. Representative Wolgamott said that he could draft a bill, drop it in the hopper, get a committee hearing, and then bring it to the House floor. The problem with that is that the issue that this is addressing is an executive order that has not had any input from the legislature. We have not had the opportunity to discuss it in a bill format, in a committee with public input, with representation from our constituents, nor to bring it to the floor to debate it. So our option then in the minority is to do it as we are doing today, to bring up amendments in order to make our point. I would like the governor to go back to the letter that we sent January 14th. We ask you to work with urgency to reconsider these inconsistent procedures and instead consider the hardworking Minnesotans who are unfairly losing their livelihoods to these arbitrary restrictions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I would just like to remind the body from Mason's Manual, Section 101, that debate must be confined to the question before the body, and the question before the body is the ruling of the Speaker. The member from Washington, Representative Jurgens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, there's so much that's just flat out wrong with what's going on here. And I'll start with germaneness. As Representative Daudt said, Mason's 402, Section 3, to be germane, the amendment is required only to relate to the same subject. It may entirely change the effect of or be in conflict with the spirit of the original motion or measure and still be germane to the subject. That's in Mason's. I urge my colleagues to vote no on upholding the Speaker's ruling. We all have wedding venues in our district that are affected by this. I've been in contact with 2 of them just since this debate started. This is a $6 billion industry in the state of Minnesota, and it's on the verge of collapse, going bankrupt. And we have the opportunity to fix it, and we're not doing it. We're standing behind rules. Let's just at least vote on this. That way, I don't know if that's what people are afraid of voting on it. They're standing behind a technicality. I don't know. I can't get in the heads of the other colleagues. We've got wedding venues that'll hold 500 people, and they're limited to 10. The weddings that they did have last year, they did it safely. There weren't any issues with COVID transmittal. Representative Poston did a fabulous job of pointing out this isn't just one industry. It's all of the businesses that industry relies on: the caterers, photographers, bartenders, DJs, decorators, local hotels. I have a friend who is engaged to be married in April. They had their venue all set up. And now with the unknowns, they're moving their wedding. They're going to go ahead with their April wedding, but they're going to do it in Wisconsin. I had a niece that was engaged to be married. Her and her now husband went to Las Vegas and got married. So people are finding ways around this. And it's not helping the state of Minnesota at all. We're not helping the businesses in the state of Minnesota at all. These wedding venues, some of them have invested millions of dollars to update their facility. They've taken out small business loans, bank loans. They still have to pay on those. Members, this is our opportunity to do something to help, and you're standing behind a bogus rule. Right now, I'm not very proud to be a member of this body that is complicit in this sort of activity. Please vote no, and let's finish the debate on this, and let's vote on it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wonder whether Representative Crecia will yield to a question.
I will yield.
He will yield. Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Crecia, I wonder, did you talk with Representative Becker-Finn, the author of the bill in question, before bringing your amendment forward?
Representative Crecia.
Representative Pinto, I did not, because I was getting phone calls and I just found out about the calendar of the bill yesterday before deadline. I did not have a chance to do that.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I guess it strikes me that there was concern expressed about Representative Wolgamott having brought his point of order to bear when he noticed how lack of germaneness for the amendment to the underlying bill and hadn't contacted Representative Crecia. I just want to urge all of us, of course, to be having conversations along the way as we're doing our work. In this case, Representative Becker-Finn has brought forward a bill. Really, the question before us on the bill is a simple one. The ability to do distance wedding licenses, did that expire 2 weeks ago, or is it going to expire at the end of May? That's the question before us. It's the only question before us. That's the simple issue. So any amendment that's going to be brought to that bill has to affect that issue. Is it 2 weeks ago, or is it 4 months from now? We've had some references to Masons saying that that amendment could reverse the underlying bill, could do various things, but has to relate to the underlying bill. And in this case, this issue of this amendment does not have anything to do with the question of whether it expired 2 weeks ago or several months from now. Members, we have a regular procedure in the legislature when we are deciding what to do. Representative Wolgamott spelled it out very well in his response to Representative Crecia's question. You introduce a bill, you talk to the committee chair, you hope that there's enough support, and you work to build that support to have your bill heard, have a debate on it, have a discussion on it, and then potentially move it on through the process. The fact that this amendment relates to an executive order, which, by the way, the underlying bill does not change that process. There's no reason to change that process. It has served our state very well for all these years. And so, members, we are in regular session. We can discuss and debate this issue and this amendment and many other issues. One thing that we should not do is to make a change to those procedures to say that we're going to tack on something that has nothing to do with the question, this underlying bill about the exact timing of the virtual marriage license issue, and to somehow tack that on. That's not an appropriate thing for this. We have committees to examine issues that are challenging about exactly how do we balance out commerce and health. These are complicated, challenging questions that we have expertise in our committees to address them. So members, I would urge you to vote to uphold the ruling of the speaker, recognize the lack of connection here between these things. Let's get couples to be able to have these marriage licenses be recognized, and then let's move on to examine these other questions in our committee process. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Douglas, Representative Franzen. The member from Douglas, Representative Franzen.
Sorry, the mute button. All right, members, thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I too have wedding venues in my district, quite a few of them. And back in December, I received an email from one of them that said, I am very frustrated to write this email. After hours on the phone today, I found out that our business doesn't qualify for the latest COVID-19 business relief. We're a year-round wedding and event venue that is 100% shut down by the governor's executive order. We can't offer curbside, outdoor, or any service. Why are we not included in the relief package? We've lost and continue to lose weddings, galas, fundraisers, and trade shows and other winter events. We were not able to host Christmas parties this winter. My requests for information and tours have dropped significantly. My advertising and marketing expenses have not changed, as that's the only way to draw business to our property. We are a business who needs help the most and are not included. The governor assured Minnesotans that the business affected would be taken care of. I am a business that is forced to pause with no help. What help is there for us? Members, this is just one business, and there are many businesses around the state that are in this same predicament. They do not qualify for the financial assistance, and every day that they are out of money, they are one more foot in the grave and being shut down completely, bankrupt, out of business, their retirement fund gone, their dreams, their hopes, their livelihood disappeared under the weight of government. Members, this is our chance to stand up for those businesses, to stand up for those that want to get married their way. Members, let's overturn the ruling of the speaker. Thank you.
I'll remind members that the question before the body is if the decision of the speaker shall stand. Further discussion, the member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I am wondering if my friend, Representative Pinto, would yield for a question.
I will yield.
He will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Pinto, I recall several years ago when the roles were reversed and you were in the minority and we were in the majority. And there was a bill before us, an amendment to a bill, and there was a germaneness motion made. And you made a passionate argument on the floor that the motion was absurd. And I actually agreed with you. And much to the chagrin of members of leadership of my side of the aisle, several times, and I'm sure that some members that have been here for a while will know that I have actually voted, in instances like this, I would have voted red when in the majority party. And I did so because, you know what, Representative Pinto, sometimes truth, actually, you know what, truth should always prevail over party politics, over partisan politics. And so I just, as you were speaking there, I was reminded of the instance when the roles were reversed, and I agreed with you, and I was willing to stand up for the truth. I was intrigued with your comments, and this is the reason I asked you to yield, that arguing that a bill can't have an amendment can't add a new subject to it. But we all know that we in this body have vehicle bills. And we'll have DE amendments. And a vehicle bill will be used to offer a DE amendment that'll add in a whole sort of new topics that have nothing to do with the underlying vehicle bill. So I'm just wondering, could you please enlighten us how your comments about this particular matter, the question before us, pertain to vehicle bills and DE amendments, which we will see later this session?
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Lucero, thank you for the question. I feel like perhaps Representative Lucero, that question is one that will be better directed, maybe better directed to the Speaker in terms of a parliamentary inquiry to understand regarding vehicle bill, regarding what you're describing, and maybe something we can address at a later time. What I know is that when I'm looking at 3.21, the idea is, as it was quoted earlier by the majority leader, quote, a motion or proposition on a subject different from that under consideration must not be admitted under guise of its being an amendment. And when I look at this particular bill and this particular amendment, I say this is a bill that is affecting the precise timing of when this law that we passed last summer, when it expires or not. And that's the question before us in terms of the bill. An amendment that addresses the topics in this amendment, to my mind, goes well beyond whether it's from a couple weeks ago, whether it's 4 months from now, as to the timing of when that law expires. So I think that's all I've got for you.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, members, I sincerely am very regretful for where we are going in this body, in this institution. We see a continued narrowing and narrowing. We have the 24-hour rule. We have just a continued narrowing of the allowance of dialogue, of relationship building, of actually just doing good for Minnesotans. And instead, something as simple as this, it's clearly germane, Madam Speaker. It's clearly germane. And we're just allowing partisan politics to stand in the way of bettering Minnesotans. And I really regret this continued path we're going down. And we've even seen it several times just in this debate here, with the majority leader standing up with frivolous points of order to inject himself. We just don't allow any latitude. We're just getting down to a point here where, what are we becoming? Why do we even exist as a legislative branch or a House of Representatives? Madam Speaker, members, please vote red. We all know in our hearts this is germane, and we should allow this to go forward for the betterment of Minnesotans. Thank you.
The member from Waseca, Representative Petersburg.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And so I want to get back to this amendment and whether or not it's germane. Earlier, we heard one member ask another member, how could I get your support for this amendment? And the answer was, well, you got to present it into a bill form and have to go through committee. We had another member reiterate the same thing. Well, in order to get this talked about, it has to be submitted through committee. Remember, this is an amendment. Amendments don't go through that process. Amendments are allowed to be directed to the germaneness and through the discussion of the underlying bill. And so I want to make sure that we aren't getting ourselves confused about what we're telling each other. You do not have to have an amendment go through committee in order to get it heard as an amendment. That has never been the case. I don't know of anything where it requires that. You have to present it through the proper channels, and it's amended to the bill on the House floor, not in committee. That's completely different. So I'm just clarifying for us that the issue of germaneness is about whether or not we believe it has importance to the underlying bill. In this case, I believe it does, and I would recommend a red vote as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion. Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would Representative Wolgamott yield for a question?
He will yield.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative Wolgamott. I was listening. I appreciate you bringing the point of order. I think, as you can tell, I always appreciate a good debate on our rules. So my comments are going to be very relevant to what we're talking about. And I think the Speaker got this one wrong. But I want to ask you, Representative Wolgamott, I heard you in your argument earlier as you were talking to Representative Krisha, and you asked Representative Krisha to open his rule book and open it to 3.21. So I'd ask you to, well, I assume because you did that, you've already got yours open to that, and that's the rule that we're debating here. You made the argument in your comments that we can't do this because it expands the scope of the bill. Can you point out in that rule where you read that?
Representative Wolgamott.
Representative Daudt, Madam Speaker, Representative Daudt, as I'd already mentioned in my response to Representative Krisha's questions, it's a subject different that under consideration must not be admitted under guise of its being an amendment. So in my advice, in my stating my point of order, I shared expanding the scope of the bill. To me, and it's up to the Speaker to decide, to me, expanding the scope of the bill is what makes this particular motion different from that under consideration and should not be admitted under guise of its being an amendment. Again, as has been said many times, this bill, the question before us in this bill, Senate File 26, is whether or not this section of statute expires on January 15th or May 31st of 2021. Under my interpretation of the rules, in which case I made to the Speaker, expanding the scope of the bill is a violation, is out of order from House Rule 3.21. Therefore, this amendment is not germane and it is out of order. That's for the Speaker to decide. And I hope that someday we will be able to get to her ruling on my point of order.
Representative Daudt.
Sorry, I forgot to turn my mic on. Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Wolgamott. I appreciate that. You are wrong, however, and I'll point out why you're wrong. It doesn't say that. And I have heard, and I said this a little bit earlier, alluded to it in my comments about we're perverting this rule. And you're purposefully narrowing the strike zone, I think, when the rules here don't suggest that that should be the case. And we just want us to review together a few different things here. So number one, our House rules do not say that. They do not say that you cannot expand the scope of the bill. What it does say is that you cannot, a motion or proposition on a subject different than that under consideration must not be admitted. Different, okay? In section 402, under Masons, amendments must be germane. Paragraph 3, again, to be germane, an amendment is only required to relate to the same subject. And the problem that we are making is you are conflating B of 3.21, which is an amendment to an amendment on the House floor, must relate only to the primary amendment and not introduce any new subject. That is not the case for an amendment, okay? I'll take you back to Mason's 4.02. Paragraph 3, to be germane, the amendment is required only to relate to the same subject. It may entirely change the effect or be in conflict with the spirit of the original motion or measure and still be germane. Number 4, an entirely new proposal may be substituted by amendment as long as it is germane to the main purpose of the original proposal. Really, the word that we're debating here is germane. I've got the dictionary definition. Google search germane right now, and it gives you a dictionary definition. Relevant to the subject under consideration. The strike zone that you are using is the amendment must be the underlying bill. That is not the case with germaneness. It must only relate to the underlying bill. So it doesn't, expands the scope of the bill is 100% allowed. 100% allowed. We can expand the scope of the bill. We can bring in a new subject. That is allowed in an amendment. It just must relate to the underlying bill, which this one very clearly does. So I understand that the majority party, you don't need the argument on your side if you have the votes on your side, right? So you're going to win today. But I'm going to make sure that when you win today and you have voted, that you feel bad about it because you understand that you are wrong. And you are wrong today, okay? There are times that I will stand at this microphone and I will make a valiant argument why I think something is the way it is. And I'll be wrong. And I'll stand here and admittedly do it because that's my job. Today is not one of those days. We need to stop in this chamber for the good of the House of Representatives narrowing the strike zone when it is not that way in our rules. It is up to the Speaker to make the ruling. She made that ruling. She was wrong. It is incumbent on this body to read the rules, read Mason's manual, look up the definition of the word germane. If you are not happy with what those rules say, then change the rules of this body. You have the votes to do it. But don't make up new rules that don't exist. Don't pervert them by interpreting them in ways that don't exist. There are rules. Do I get to decide I don't want to wear a mask on the House floor just because I don't like it? Nope, it's a rule you put in place, so I do it. And I do it out of respect to keep you safe and to keep me safe. But let's respect our House rules because they do not say what you are saying they say. And they do not say what the Speaker ruled them to say. So it is our obligation to correct this now in a vote to overrule the ruling of the Speaker, period. If I am wrong, please stand up and let's have a debate. Show me where it says that an amendment to the bill cannot expand the scope of the bill. Not written anywhere here. Can't introduce a new subject? It can, as long as the new subject relates to the original subject. And I think you can tell I get most passionate because I really appreciate a good rules debate. So I welcome having more of these. We should have had a controversial rule in the actual adoption of the rules. Had you tried to change this and narrow the strike zone, we'd have had a hell of an argument here on the House floor. But the reality is you didn't. You liked this rule the way it was written. You didn't change it. You didn't propose to change it. So let's now follow it the way you intended it to be followed. Because after all, this is your rule. You voted for it. And because you voted for it once, I know that right now you can vote for it again. And you have to vote for it again. Otherwise, you will be inconsistent. You will have voted originally on what the rule actually says, the original intent of the rule. And today, if you vote to uphold the ruling of the Speaker, you will be wrong. And you will be inconsistent with your own votes. So I'm giving you the ability, and I bet you we can have this vote and be done with this argument in 4 minutes if you actually just allow the vote. I'll make sure nobody on my side stands up because I think they all tried to creatively argue the underlying motion already and make it relevant to this particular question. So I'll make sure they stand down and they shut up and we'll just take a vote quick. But let's not pervert our rules and put things in there that aren't in there. This is germane. It does relate to the underlying motion. I can go through, Mason's manual, I can go through the rules, we can do this for an hour. I don't want to do that. But what I also don't want to do is all session long have a strike zone that moves from here to there to here to there. Let's do each other a favor and let's respect each other. I'll actually say that we've been getting along as a minority party and a majority party really well this session. We've worked together on some things. You have my commitment that we'll continue to do that. I know today you're not going to agree with me, and that's okay. I'm not going to be mad about that. You're going to do what you're going to do. But in the future, I'm actually standing up because I care about this body. I served 4 years as the Speaker of the House. I do care about the rules, and I do care about this institution more than I care about my party or my seat or my election certificate. What we're doing here is bigger. And so let's just show each other the same respect that we've shown each other all session. And in the future, let's just follow the rules the way they're written. So thank you, Madam Speaker.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll go to the question before the body, and I will remind members what that is. Shall the discussion of the Speaker stand as judgment of the House? A yes or a green vote supports the ruling of the Speaker. A no or red vote goes against the ruling of the Speaker. The clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. Members, please vote. For those that voted remotely previously, please make sure you're using your remote voting function. The clerk will call those voting by phone.
Barr.
Barr, no.
Barr, no. Bernardi.
Aye.
Bernardi, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Davney.
Daphne votes aye.
Davney, aye. Detmer. Detmer, no. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grossel.
Grossel, no.
Grossel, no. Hanson, R.
Hanson, R, aye.
Hanson, R, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Hollins.
Collins, aye.
Hollins, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. Mueller. Mueller, no. Murphy. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Olson, L. Olson, L, aye. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Sandell. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Scott.
Scott, no.
Scott, no. West.
West, no.
West, no. Walgamot. Walgamot, aye. Speaker Hartman. Speaker Hartman.
Speaker Hartman, aye.
Speaker Hartman, aye.
Wasilek votes aye.
Wasilek, aye.
Poston votes no.
Poston, no. Moran, aye.
Frederick votes aye.
Frederick, aye. Hassan. Hassan. Have all members who wish to vote voted?
Have all members who wish to vote voted?
Okay, who's left?
This is Representative Wasilek. I don't see my thing showing up. I'm an aye.
Representative Wasilek, just give us a moment here. There are a few of you that voted over voice that we're still trying to record. But we do have yours,
Okay.
Representative Wasilek.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, this is Representative Poston. My vote just went up. Thank you.
Yes. Members, just give us a moment here to record what we have.
I think we got people talking about this.
Hassan. Hassan.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 69 ayes and 60 nays, it stands as the judgment of the House that the decision of the Speaker shall stand. There are no further amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 26.
Third reading, discussion to the bill. Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call those members voting by phone.
Barr.
Barr, aye.
Barr, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Davney.
Daphne, aye.
Davney, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Frederick.
Frederick, aye.
Frederick, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grossel.
So during the quorum call, if you don't get.
Grossel. Hanson, R.
Grossel, no.
Grossel, no. Hanson R.
Hanson R. I.
Hanson R. I. Hassan.
Hassan, I.
Hassan I. Hausman.
Hausman, I.
Hausman I. Hollins.
Collins, I.
Hollins I. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani I. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason I. Moran. Moran I. Mueller. Mueller I. Murphy. Murphy.
Murphy, I.
Murphy I. Olson L. Olson L I. Poston.
No.
Poston no. Richardson.
Richardson, I.
Richardson I.
I wonder if you have to.
Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell I. Scott.
Scott, I.
Scott I. Wozlowick.
Thank you. Wozlowick, I.
Wozlowick I. West.
West, I.
West I. Wolgamott. Wolgamott I. Speaker Hartman.
Speaker Hartman, I.
Speaker Hartman I. Got them all? Yes, I don't know who it is. Detmer. Did he vote?
The clerk will close the roll. There being 127 ayes and 3 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to. The member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If it's okay by the privilege of the House, my request to speak button timed out, and I just wanted to set a couple things straight on the record regarding the bill we just voted on.
Please proceed. Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just wanted to remind members about what the bill was that we were actually voting on. It changes a date from January 15th to May 31st for the purposes of allowing marriage licenses to be issued without the applicant appearing in person. I just wanted to clarify that it was not a blanket online marriage license bill. It was simply extending the waiver of the requirement that a couple apply in person, and it's only extending it for 4 more months. I did introduce the House companion of the bill on January 7th. We passed the bill out of committee on January 12th. And for all the talk during the debate of wanting to find resolution on the issues raised in the amendments, none of those issues were brought up at any point, either personally to me or through the committee process. And the bill did pass out of committee unanimously. We can't safely pull a person aside to have a conversation on the floor right now, but we do all have phones and would appreciate folks reaching out if they do have those concerns. So thank you, members, for passing this important bill. I know that there are Minnesotans who are thankful that we finally got this done today. Thank you.
Motions and resolutions. There are copies of the non-controversial motions at the House desk and online. If there is no objection, we'll take action on these motions first. Hearing no objection, the motions prevail. There's a motion at the desk, and the clerk will report the motion.
Winkler moves that the rules be so far suspended so that Senate File 192, now on the General Register, be given its third reading and be placed upon its final passage.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, this is the motion to suspend related to the unemployment insurance calculation technical fix. It's my understanding that it is acceptable to both caucuses, and it has already passed the Senate, so we can get this sent to the governor tonight.
The member from Isanti, Representative Daudt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and members. I'd support the motion.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Madam Speaker, my request to speak button.
Oh, there you are. I see you. Go ahead, Representative Munson.
Munson, yeah. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could I try to figure out who the bill's author is? Is it Representative Noor?
Representative Munson, that is correct.
Okay, Madam Speaker, if Representative Noor would yield for a question.
Representative Munson, we are on the motion to suspend, not the underlying bill right now.
Well, Madam Speaker, it's important to know if this question is about whether or not this is a sense of urgency before the body. And that is the motion that we're voting on, is it not?
Representative Munson, Representative Munson, also Representative Noor, you've been asked to yield for a question.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
He will yield. Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Noor, I understand we're trying to vote to suspend the rules to take up this bill for a sense of urgency. I've tried to research the bill. There is not a fiscal note that accompanies this bill. Is there a fiscal note that accompanies this bill? Do you have one available?
Representative Noor.
Madam Speaker, this is a technical bill because last year we passed legislation that we're not going to hold employers for the unemployment benefits that are issued during COVID-19. I don't know if you recall. So for this purpose, it's to ensure that the experience rating for employers is not impacted due to the calculation that is required by law, which will have been sent to the employers by December 15. In fact, there's an extension for this for temporary until the end of the month. And we want to make sure that that extension does not continue. And we are able to allow the UI to use the previous year experience rating moving on to this year.
Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And if Representative Noor would continue to yield for another question.
Representative Noor will continue to yield. Go ahead, Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Noor, you said that that the bill that we passed last year was to not hold the employers responsible for the higher unemployment that they to the rate that they pay into the system. Because the way that the system works is if an employer has higher turnover or they have more layoffs, then they will be penalized and have to pay more into the system. But the reality is the employers altogether pay to fund this system. And so all we're doing is shifting the burden onto many of the employers that have been doing everything possible they can to not lay off employees, paying them, full wages while they've gone through this pandemic. And the employers that have done everything right in trying to maintain their employees they will end up paying a higher amount into the system to keep the system solvent. Isn't that right?
Representative Noor.
Madam Speaker, this is not going to impact any employer at this point. What we're doing is to hold employers harmless for the COVID-19 benefits that are issued. Remember, this is only looking into the experience rating, which looks back up to June of last year. And the federal government has given us some resources, in fact, to pay for some of those burden to the employers. For example, if you look at the shared work, which is reimbursed by the federal government, we're still collecting it. If you look back, we also passed legislation to waive the waiting week. That means that we're going to be reimbursed by the federal government. All that taken into account. If you have looked through the numbers, more than 1 million Minnesotans have benefited from their unemployment, and that has been a lifeline for them. For that purposes, to look through the process, we need to give the UI system some time to catch up. So this is a moment for us to allow the employers to understand their UI tax rate. Otherwise, it will take some time to do the actual calculation, which will impact every employer because of the experience rating. All the new employers, it's always based on their average of all employers in that category, or based on the industry that they're in. So technically, if you're a new employer, you're not going to be impacted. If you are an employer who has existed for more than 48 months, that look back, we're saying that at this moment, we're not going to do the calculation, but next year we may have to look through the process of how much we've paid out of the UI to make sure that the account, the UI account, is able to support the workers in Minnesota.
Representative Munson.
Thank you, Representative Noor. I mean, this bill is holding harmless all employers who laid workers off during a time period, irrespective of if their layoffs were due to COVID. And there were many employers who had major layoffs that were not due to COVID. And they will then use this opportunity. I mean, there's always bad actors and good actors. There's a lot of businesses that have been harmed by the governor's restrictions and lockdown orders. And for those employers, because we don't look at the industries, we're not saying certain industries are going to be shielded, like restaurants and bars and bowling alleys and movie theaters. We're giving blanket immunity to all employers, which we've created a fund now that has a massive deficit, a massive gaping hole in the amount of money that should be in the uninsurance fund. And we will eventually have to make that up by establishing payment rates for all employers to pay back into the system to make this whole. And all of the employers that have been doing everything to keep their employees employed will have to pay for those who laid workers off that were not related to COVID. And that's my concern. We can always go back and adjust the numbers looking back in hindsight, but to offer absolute blanket bailouts for some companies that laid workers off, that use this as an advantage, which I've heard of. And it bothers me that we're rushing through this and there's not even a fiscal note to take this up. I mean, we rushed through to pass legislation. This is simply establishing a rate for unemployment insurance that we could do a month from now. It doesn't have to be done today. This body has taken up so much legislation due to a sense of urgency to cram it through. And when I see bills come through like this that are so broad and are going to be costing employers a lot of money, that I have concerns. I'm going to be voting today against suspending the rules to take this up, to cram this through when we don't even have a fiscal note that created to see what this is going to cost employers. So that's my concern, and I'm just going to be voting no. So thanks for answering the questions, and I'm sorry to see that there's no fiscal note created.
All those in favor of the Winkler motion to suspend, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Aye.
please say no.
Aye. No.
The motion prevails.
Pursuant to Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, Winkler moves that the rule therein be suspended and an urgency be declared, and that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that Senate File Number 192 be given its third reading and be placed upon its final passage.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the motion to suspend under the Constitution. I would ask for a yes vote.
And this, members, does require a roll call vote. The clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. The clerk will call the roll for those voting by phone.
Barr.
Barr, no.
Barr, no. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Davney.
Dabney votes aye.
Davney, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Frederick.
Frederick, aye.
Frederick, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R. Aye.
Hanson, R, aye. Hassan.
An aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Houseman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Hollins.
Hollins, aye.
Hollins, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Mason. Mason. Moran. Moran, aye. Mueller. Mueller, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Olson, L. Olson, L, aye. Poston.
Yeah, it's not showing. Okay.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Walgamot. Walgamot, aye. Speaker Hortman.
Speaker Hortman, aye.
Speaker Hortman, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. I don't know where Damath is.
Madam Speaker,
That's Damath. Damath.
Damath votes aye.
Damath, aye. Can you get that one on there? Okay. Pearson. Pearson.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 122 ayes and 8 nays, the motion prevails. Members, Senate File 192 is now in front of the body. There are no amendments, so the clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File number 192.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. The author of the bill, Representative Noor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. As you've heard, the year 2020 was a difficult year, not only for the workers, but also for the employers. The disruption and the fallout of the economy impacted both the workers and employers. So this bill in front of us today is going to hold the employers harmless, as we promised, to ensure that their experience rating isn't impacted by the benefits issued under COVID-19. We are also holding the taxable wage base to the previous year, which was $35,000. This is much needed to ensure the employers that they can continue to support their workers. Otherwise, some employers will have to lay off employees permanently to continue with this program. So members, I ask for your support. This is more of a technical bill to ensure that UI continues to run. Members, Madam Speaker and members, I would like to thank the work that has been done by the UI in general in the state of Minnesota. You have seen the headlines, you have seen the challenges that many states have faced. We are one of the best states in the country. And I appreciate the work that is being done by the staff at the UI to ensure that we have a smooth system to continue both to benefit the employers and also the workers. This is something that we should all be proud of. Having said that, I ask for your support to pass this bill, and Representative Rod Hamilton has got a few remarks he was trying to request to speak. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Cottonwood, Representative Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would like to say, first of all, thank you to Chair Noor. I don't have a lot to add as far as describing the bill. I would like to describe the process. Chair Noor gave us the opportunity to weigh in on this, the Minority Caucus, and also as trying times as it is, the public had an opportunity to weigh in and testify during committee. During the committee process, we did not have any known opposition to this bill. And so again, it is time sensitive, and I would ask members to vote green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. And like Representative Hamilton, I want to thank the author of the bill and encourage members to vote for this. First things first, I think it's important for people to remember that we have an unemployment insurance task force in this state, and that task force has strong bipartisan representation between labor and management, and there's been no opposition to this bill with those regards. If members look up the bill online, or if you're in the Republican caucus, a research summary was provided to you yesterday. If it's very clear that all we're doing here is taking the experience rating from the previous year and applying it to the next one. We do not want the market distortions that have taken place during this disastrous of a 2020 year to apply to businesses the next year. And so if you're not going to read your research summary, if you're not going to read the bill, then just listen to this for me. And that is that if you hate small businesses, then vote red on this bill. Okay, punish your local restaurants, punish your local pubs, punish your small businesses, raise their taxes up, and oppose this bill if you hate small businesses. Otherwise, if you want to side with facts, logic, and data, I would encourage a green vote on this bill. That's why there's been no opposition to this bill publicly, privately, in the Unemployment Insurance Task Force, in committee, or in any documentation sent to you. Thank you, Madam Speaker and members.
Further discussion. The member from Blue Earth, Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Garofalo, I'll just need to respond to your swings here. My question on this bill was really about how this money is going to be paid back. There isn't a revenue note and there's no fiscal note for this bill, and there should be a revenue note showing where this, the impact to the revenue by changing these numbers, because that money needs to be paid back into the fund, unless we are waiting for a big bailout from federal government to replenish money, which has happened, and in the past it's sometimes. But my point being, I support the small businesses that have been crushed by these executive orders that said they can't operate, and we need to make sure that that they're not harmed. But when you have an exemption like this coming forward, and there are some large companies in Minnesota going through mergers that I know of that had major layoffs, they're not going to be penalized from doing their layoffs that were not related to COVID. And so we're kind of masking that, and all employers are going to have to replenish this fund at some point. And so I was looking for anything in here that talks about that this is only for layoffs due to COVID or due to, executive orders restricting their business. I see that, Walmart still gets to benefit from this, and these and many employers that were that had, that were not impacted or actually benefited from the governor shutting down small businesses. But this is just kind of blanket protection for all industries, and I'm sure that's why there's no opposition, because it kicks the can down the road. It's very short-sighted and makes everybody happy now, but people are gonna have to pay for this, or the taxpayers will. And so that's why I was asking what the financial cost is. Is it $500 million that we're doing here, or is it $100 million? I have no idea. It sounds like nobody has an idea what it's going to cost, and so that's what my concerns were. Unfortunate, but to say that there was a note out there on the bill, I see what the summary is, but there's no numbers associated with that, and I think that it's reckless for this body to cram through legislation like this without having the actual numbers.
Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll.
Let's have the clerk call the members by phone.
The clerk will call the roll for those voting by phone.
Barr.
Aye.
Barr, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, aye.
Bernardi, aye. Christensen.
Christensen, aye.
Christensen, aye. Davney.
Daphne, aye.
Davney, aye. Damath.
Damath, aye.
Damath, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Frederick.
Frederick, aye.
Frederick, aye. Gomez.
Gomez, aye.
Gomez, aye. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R. Aye.
Hanson, R. Aye. Hassan.
Hassan, aye.
Hassan, aye. Hausman.
Hausman, aye.
Hausman, aye. Hollins.
Collins, aye.
Hollins, aye. Mariani.
Mariani, aye.
Mariani, aye. Mason.
Mason, aye.
Mason, aye. Moran.
I should have been.
Moran, aye. Mueller. Mueller, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, aye.
Murphy, aye. Olson L. Olson L, aye. Pearson. Pearson. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Richardson.
Richardson, aye.
Richardson, aye. Sandell.
Sandell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye. Wolgamott. Wolgamott, aye. Speaker Hartman.
Aye.
Speaker
Hartman, aye.
Speaker Hartman, aye. Pearson. Pearson.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 129 ayes and 0 nays, the bill passes and its title agreed to. There's a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Becker-Finn moves that House File Number 310 be recalled from the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law and be re-referred to the Committee on Human Services, Finance, and Policy.
To the maker of the motion, the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that is my motion. House File 310 expands the persons required to report suspected child maltreatment and abuse. So it expands mandated reporters. Does not need to be seen in the Judiciary Law and Civil Law Committee. And so that would be my motion to refer to Human Services, Finance, and Policy.
All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails. There's a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Hertaus moves that House Concurrent Resolution Number 1 be recalled from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration and be placed upon its adoption.
To the maker of the motion, the member from Hennepin, Representative Hertaus.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker and members. That is my motion. I just want to point out that on March 13th of 2020, we all learned about an emergency declaration that was being declared under Chapter 1231. Most of us were quite alarmed by the so-called science that was being provided to us at that time. We were told that 850,000 hospitalizations were imminent, that there would be 74,000 deaths. And with that information, clearly the governor must know what he's talking about and has the science to back it up. So there was broad legislative support to get on board and do what we needed to do with regard to this COVID-19 pandemic. It was clear that we were not prepared. And, we knew that we were inadequately prepared with regard to not having any PPEs, not having adequate hospital capacity, also not having ICU capacity, and also access to ventilators, which was believed to be the most effective treatment at that time. And under this emergency response, all of this power was claimed under 1231. And in most emergency responses in which a peacetime emergency would be declared, it basically is for the purpose of preparedness and mitigation. If there's a tornado, you need to secure the area. If there's a flood, you need to secure the area and do the things that are most important to mitigate, to move us into the other phases of emergency response. Accordingly, members, wanting to do my part as a legislator, and I'm sure many of you also did the same thing. I can't imagine that there's any of us that maybe did not write the governor letters or try to communicate with him regarding the raft of emergency orders that were coming about at that time. In fact, Representative Haley, earlier this afternoon, you mentioned about a letter that you sent and you got no response. I guess I'm really frustrated as a sitting member of this legislature that I've written, emailed, mailed first-class delivery, and hand-delivered to the governor's office multiple communications and messages without the courtesy of a reply. I just find that really abhorrent that members of the legislature don't even have staff member respond to any letters or advice or suggestions that we're trying to do as a co-equal branch of government in this legislature. In fact, one of those communications that I had with the governor was particularly going back to 2013 when there was a large threat of a global pandemic over the then avian flu. It was more commonly known as the bird flu. And it was feared that avian creatures such as waterfowl and other birds that cross the Bering Sea from Asia and use our Western flyway, many of these have departures into the Central Flyway, that humans would be really infected badly with this potential flu and a pandemic. I was in the minority then, and I actually came forward with a bill recognizing that when you have pandemics, ultimately it's going to lead to vaccinations. And so I came forward with a bill that was bipartisanly supported and passed into law that provided that dentists could administer vaccines. Most of greater Minnesota and rural Minnesota doesn't have a Walgreens or a CVC or a Minute Clinic. But the idea that we would have a network of providers available to provide a vaccine, but yet no response, none whatsoever. And even as we are moving into this phase of vaccination, I've heard and read about talks of employing student nurses, but yet nothing about this. And I wrote the governor about the availability of it. It's just one example of a failure to communicate with this legislature. So last May, it became very apparent that the predictions of all of this massive hospitalization and deaths just wasn't going to occur or had not been occurring, and that the science was flawed. And of course, the estimates were revised down. And at that time, I believe we were still under 1,000 deaths. And please, I'm not suggesting to anybody that these deaths aren't significant or that COVID isn't real. That's not the issue here. But since March 13th, and while we were in session last year, the peacetime emergency was extended in April, and then in May. And then in May, I could see that there were some real problems with Chapter 1231. And so I went through this same process and tried to get the urgency declared that we take up 1231 and that we offer legislation that will fix some of the inherent problems with our functioning as a co-equal branch of government. I find it ironic that none of us are held accountable to the governor's actions. 1231 is so flawed in that you have to have an affirmative vote from both chambers to extend it. It should be absolutely the opposite way. Each of us should be accountable and on record of voting to support an extension of the peacetime emergency and making each of us vote affirmatively. And it would also make the governor make his case with real science as to why this peacetime emergency needs to be extended. Members, in 44 more days, we will be under peacetime emergency for 1 full year. And I'm concerned that this peacetime emergency has gone through a metamorphosis from emergency preparedness to now prevention. And if now preventing COVID-19, which you're not going to do, I mean, it's here and it's going to take its course. But if prevention is the reason for keeping us under a peacetime emergency, and it's the justification for repeatedly extending these emergencies, then expect these declarations to continue on for many months into the future, because I don't believe that this governor is going to end this peacetime emergency until you have a vaccination rate that exceeds 70%. If prevention is the issue, we're not going to get it until you have that rate of vaccination. And it's doubtful if that will ever even be achieved, because more than 30% of respondents in some surveys say they won't take the vaccine because there have been no animal trials on this vaccine. So members, it's time for us to roll up our sleeves. It's time for us to accept our responsibilities with the governor on this emergency. Last May, I stated that the governor shouldn't bear this burden solely on his shoulders. And I still believe that. And I believe the governor in all his heart thinks he's doing the right thing. But isn't it convenient for each of us to not have to vote on this? Isn't it convenient to just let the governor take all the heat for this? We're abrogating our responsibility, and we need to fix this Chapter 1231, or this is going to go on for the rest of the summer. So let's take responsibility to represent the more than 40,000 people, or about 40,000 people that each of us represents. Each of us is getting messages in our mailboxes nearly every day. And with that, Madam Speaker, I'll ask for a roll call on this motion.
Representative Hertaus has asked for a roll call. Are there 15 hands? Seeing there are 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion?
Madam Speaker.
Pause for a second. We have someone on the floor to be recognized. Please use your blue button if possible, and I'll circle back to that voice. Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to thank Representative Hertaus for his words. I think he was thorough. I think he was correct. And I think really he said everything that needs to be said. I would encourage members to vote yes on the motion.
The member from Scott, Representative Mortensen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I had filed the same motion today, actually, because just 3 days ago, 111 members of this body made a promise to every single Minnesotan. They promised to reaffirm their commitment to our democratic process, which includes 3 separate but equal branches of state government. It also includes, within our legislative branch, a rule that we're invoking right now to recall a bill from committee or resolution at any time. In this rule, we've talked a lot about rules today. It's in our packet. It's part of our democratic process, and it's there because it's intended to be sure the majority doesn't silence the minority. Or in other words, to make sure that those in power cannot ignore the people of Minnesota. So today with this motion, all 111 people that voted for House Resolution 1, pledging their support for our democratic process, have the opportunity to make sure that that wasn't just words, that they meant it. Because right now, and in fact for the last 11 months, the governor has single-handedly had unilateral control of our state, usurping the legislature. Now, I can't think of anything that's more anti-democratic than that. These anti-democratic orders have devastated our economy. It's put hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans out of work. It's devastated our small businesses. We spent 2.5 hours tonight debating 2 patchwork COVID bills that have an impact on small business. Suicide attempts are up. Domestic abuse is up. Our children's education is being stripped away from them. And forcing our kids to wear masks has proven to be far more harmful to their health than the virus itself. Just today, I got an email from a constituent, and she told me about a student, high school student that she knew. He was a musician, an athlete. She said he was a great student and an all-around good kid. His dream was to be a pole vaulter at the University of Illinois. But because of the isolation, the restrictions that have been put on place for almost a year now, his mother noticed he was withdrawing, he was becoming depressed, and last October, he took his own life. The governor's anti-democratic cure is far worse than this disease. So today, members, you have a choice. You can choose to practice what you preached on Monday, or you can prove that Monday's resolution was a sham, that it was another empty promise by a room of politicians, the types of promises that every single Minnesotan is sick and tired of. So I ask and I hope to get your support today by restoring our democratic process and reasserting the legislative branch as a co-equal branch of our state government. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Further discussion. The member from Hennepin, Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, members, I urge a no vote. The democratic process is doing just fine. We have a committee dedicating itself on a weekly basis with members from both parties to addressing the governor's emergency orders. We just voted on 2 bills tonight addressing that same situation, and I would ask members to not truncate the process by bringing this forward and vote no.
Seeing no further discussion, a roll call having been requested, the clerk will take the roll. Members, please vote. If you voted remotely previously, please vote that way again. The clerk will call the members voting by phone.
Barr.
Barr, aye.
Barr, aye. Bernardi.
Bernardi, no.
Bernardi, no. Christensen.
Christensen, no.
Christensen, no. Davney.
Dabney votes no.
Davney, no. Damath.
Damath votes yes.
Damath, aye. Detmer. Detmer, aye. Frederick.
Frederick, no.
Frederick, no. Gomez.
Gomez, no.
Gomez, no. Grossel.
Grossel, aye.
Grossel, aye. Hanson, R.
Hanson R, no.
Hanson, R, no. Hassan.
Hassan, no.
Hassan, no. Hausman.
Hausman, no.
Hausman, no. Hollins.
Hollins, no.
Hollins, no. Mariani.
Mariani, no.
Mariani, no. Mason.
Mason, no.
Mason, no. Moran.
Moran, no.
Moran, no. Mueller. Mueller, aye. Murphy.
Murphy, no.
Murphy, no. Olson, L. Olson, L, no. Poston.
Poston, aye.
Poston, aye. Richardson. Richardson,
aye.
Richardson, aye. Sandell.
Dell, aye.
Sandell, aye. Scott.
Scott, aye.
Scott, aye. West.
West, aye.
West, aye.
Swazinski.
Wolgamott. Wolgamott, no. Speaker Hartman.
Speaker Hartman, no.
Speaker Hartman, no.
Swazinski, aye.
Sundin votes no.
Swazinski, aye. Sundin, no.
Sandell changes from yes to no.
Sandell changes from aye to nay.
Richardson changes from aye to no.
Richardson changes from aye to no. You getting those?
All right, clerk will close the roll. There being 60 ayes and 70 nays, the motion does not prevail. There's a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Martinson moves that House Concurrent Resolution number 2 be recalled from the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration and be placed upon its adoption.
Representative Mortensen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have half a mind to move forward once again with this and continuing to do so, but I will go ahead and withdraw my motion.
The motion has been withdrawn. Announcements. Oh, excuse me, we have one more. We have a resolution. At the desk, the clerk will report the resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution number 4, being introduced by Winkler and Hartman, a House Concurrent Resolution adopting deadlines for the 2021 regular session. The concurrent resolution is being referred to the Committee on Rules and Legislative Administration.
Announcements. Okay. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. Monday, February 1st, 2021.
Representative Winkler moves that when the House adjourns today, it adjourns until 3:30 p.m. Monday, February 1st, 2021. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion prevails. Representative Winkler.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Representative Winkler moves that the House do now adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Aye.
The motion prevails and the House stands adjourned until 3:30 p.m. Monday, February 1st, 2021.